You are going to be extremely glad if you join me tonight. I'm going to bring it from the beginning about what does it mean to lead yourself well. That's the subject of my conversation tonight, about leading well. In fact, I would say leading well is the number one leadership principle. It's the number one thing. And so I'm going to break that down. What does it mean to lead well? All right. So it's very important. That's the number one leadership principle. And here's the thing. It's more about determination than it is anything. It's something you can determine to do. Now listen, it's nice if you've got your MBA. It's nice if you read 40 or 50 books a year on leadership, and I'll talk about some of those things. But it really starts with lead well. And what does that really mean? So I'll kind of break that down. But I believe lead well, leading yourself well, leading others well, is the number one leadership principle. If you say, man, I would love to be a leader, it's not that complicated, but you have to make a commitment to lead well. So I'll talk to you about what does it mean to lead well. So hey, thanks for joining me. And this is Scotty Sanders coming to you. I've been very, very blessed that I'm an international leadership consultant. I get to help people here in the United States, in Dallas, Texas area, but literally people all over the world. So it's my honor that I get to do that. And it's really my calling. See, my purpose is to encourage and to empower others to live, lead, get that, live, lead, that's what we'll talk about tonight, and finish well. So we're going to be talking about how do you lead yourself well. Now, let me give a little update or two. So some of you know that I wrote a fantasy fiction book several years ago called Quest the Keys, and we wrote that to empower the next generation for them to discover their purpose, live with passion, and unlock their potential. And so it teaches young people character, values, these intrinsic things that within them, but also it teaches them life skills about how to plan and problem solve, good people skills. So here's the neat thing I want to share with you. I shared a piece of news with you last week, and I'll share that again. But we have a grant opportunity for schools in the DFW area. Primarily, this is middle school, although we'll do in some high schools as well. We have a matching grant that this grant will fund bringing me to your school. Okay, if you're an educator, you've got a student in a school, bringing me to your school, do a school assembly, and give each of the students that participate a copy of Quest of the Keys, and then they'll get also a certificate of completion. So if you're interested in that, if your child is in school or you know of a school that would be interested in that, you can leave your contact information in the comment section, and Jenny, our point person, will get back in touch with you. Or you can email Jenny at jenny@questofthekeys.com, and she'll be glad to talk to you about what that means. So we're super excited about that. We're anticipating being in a number of schools in the Dallas and Fort Worth area, but that's a way early on in life we can teach these young people about they can lead themselves well. And then last week, if you missed it, I shared with you some exciting news related to Quest of the Keys about us signing an agreement with a company in California, in the Hollywood area, Voyage Media, that they're working on selecting a writer. They'll be taking our manuscript of our book and turning it into a movie script. Is that not exciting? And it's just one of those things that just the perfect timing with the perfect company. And then from there, they will be charged with finding the right partner with us to make Quest of the Keys a movie. So we're super excited. August the 9th is our date that we'll be having a press conference at a hotel in downtown Dallas, and we'll give you more information about that. And we'll probably be videoing that event, and we'll post it here on Facebook. So, hey, well, thanks for joining me again. So we're going to go ahead and dive into about lead well. And again, I'm saying to you that this is the number one principle in leadership. So what do I mean by lead well? So let's talk about that. So it first starts with leading yourself well. So you got to lead yourself well first. So when you lead yourself well, what are some things that would involve? It would involve things like being a disciplined person. And I'm not saying to the point of you have no fun, but there has to be some discipline involved in that. And you know, without getting into that, there are a lot of things that require discipline, working out, exercise, just that personal commitment of being a disciplined, orderly type person. So it starts with discipline, but it also relates to being reliable. You want to lead yourself well, be a reliable person. I've been reminded just today the importance of reliability, of follow through and follow up. When you don't follow through and follow up, you're not leading yourself well. And people will think that you're not a responsible person. And people don't want to follow an irresponsible person. They just do not want to do that. So you want to be disciplined, you want to be reliable, and you also want to be a committed learner. You know, some of you have heard me tell the story. When I got my master's in education, I thought I was done studying. I was through. But I realized quickly that it would pass me by. So I committed. I remember I was probably in my mid-30s that I committed to be a lifelong learner, and I just went on that path. In fact, I've learned a lot more since I got my master's degree than when I got my undergraduate and master's degree. Learning is something you do continuous. And when you're a learner, that's how you lead yourself well. And then you can add value to others, provide resources along the way. So that's part of leading yourself well. And then one other thing I would say there is someone that leads himself well also has a level of self-awareness. They know how they're connecting with people. They know how they're coming across. They also know their blind spots. But I found people that lead themselves well, they have good self-awareness. Some people refer to it as emotional intelligence. There's some empathy there. There's some awareness of themselves, how they're coming across. Are they including others or not? So those are some things that I would say to you about leading yourself well. But part of leading well is leading yourself well. And next, I would say to you is being a servant leader. Being a servant leader. The best leaders in the world are servant leaders. They put the people that they lead ahead of themselves. They're at the bottom of the pyramid. In fact, if you can think about being an inverse pyramid is how you lead. You're not at the top of the pyramid, but you're at the bottom of the pyramid. But if you want to lead well, you have to be a servant leader. You serve others. It's about how can I help others versus what can I get from them. And here's the third one. They're transformational and motivational leaders. When you're around this person, it's transforming. It can be life-changing. The value they add, how they inspire you. And again, that motivational thing, I want to put a little bit of a twist on that, all right? I've always said I don't really want to have people on my team that I feel like I always have to motivate. But what I want to make sure is I'm not doing things to demotivate other people, all right? So, if you want to lead well, you've got to be transformational, a transformative leader, and a motivational. At least don't demotivate people. Look for ways to not demotivate people along the way. And here's a fourth thing, that's a person that leads well. They have the ability to cast a very inspiring, a mountaintop vision. Folks, this is where we are, but this is where we're heading. This is what we want to look like. They can communicate the big picture. They don't get bogged down in all the minutia and all the details. And listen, some people have to take care of that, but the leader has got to be the person. He's looking forward. She's looking ahead. She's painting a picture of what we want to look like in the future. So inspiring, someone that can cast a vision that others are willing to follow. And then here's the fifth one. Someone that has the ability, if you want to lead well, you have the ability to empower others. All right, that means you take power that you may have and you give that to someone else. They take it from you and they're able to go with that, right? You empower people. It's not about you getting power, it's about you giving power away. And you're confident enough in your own leadership that you're not threatened by that. It's not about you getting more power, it's about your ability to give power and empower others. But here's the caveat there. If you just give power away and there's no accountability, that can be a real problem. So you have to empower people while yet providing accountability to that person. If not, there's no check-in. They can go astray, they can start doing their own thing to the detriment of the organization. So they're able to empower, but yet they keep people accountable. And then number 6 is that they prioritize relationships. They prioritize relationships. People are important to them. They strategically schedule time that they can connect with people because people are important to them. Now, some people have better people skills than others. I've worked on my people skills. I'm a pretty hard-nosed, let's get to it, let's knock it out of the park. But I've had to really work on that. And I have tremendous value for people. I really have a heart to encourage, and I want to do that. But I have to be more intentional about doing that. So I want to be strategic in doing that. I can't be at everything, but I want to be at the strategic times where I can prioritize relationships. And in that, you want to encourage people, be an encourager, affirm people along the way, and then make sure you listen. Again, I've admitted to you that's a thing that I have to really watch, and sometimes I struggle with. But I want to be a good listener. But I also want to be able to have the kind of relationship with people that I can coach people. I can have a crucial conversation because of that relationship I have, that they'll listen to me because they trust me, that they've seen me lead myself well, and now I'm trusted enough where they're willing to listen to my coaching, knowing that I'm out for their best interest. And then along with that comes care. If you're leading someone and you don't care about them, I think that's a real problem. So there has to be a level of care along the way. And here's number 7. I'll wrap up to this, and I've got a couple questions. So number 7 on leading well is being a trustworthy person. Let that sink in for a little bit. Are you a trustworthy person? Can you be trusted by your family and the people that you work with? Are you a person of your word? When you tell somebody you're going to do something, do you keep your word? Can you be trusted? And then the other piece of that, I would say, be trusting of others. People want to be trusted. To me, you're not leading well when you don't really trust people. You'll keep people at a distance. You'll play things close to the vest, and you certainly won't empower people, or you won't share it. You won't open up to people as much if you're not trusting of others. I was having a conversation with someone just today where I said, if I was a teacher, I would be the teacher that gives my student 100 until they prove to me they're not 100 student. I want to trust that student, that you're an A student, and you'll have to prove to me that you're not that. That's what I'm talking about, trusting others. Don't you want to be trusted? Sure you do. We all want to be trusted. Well, let's trust others. But on that other side now, be a trustworthy person. Now, let me just say to you again, let me book in. I started with the number 1 leadership principle to me is lead well. And leading well does not require a lot of special degrees. It just doesn't. It's more of that thing you commit to do. It's more about who you are as an individual. I want to be an individual that my DNA, my platform, my brand, whatever you want to call it, I want to be the person that I'm known to leading well. All right? Now, there's some things that we can learn along the way to help us lead well better, okay? Because I believe that there's certain things you can do that really doesn't require a lot of education, a lot of book knowledge. It's just that commitment of who you are and what you want to be about. But if you want to really take that to the next level, there are things that you can learn and grow in that will help you to even move from maybe a B to an A when it comes to leadership. So let's talk about some of those things. In fact, I'm going to go to my questions. I got a couple of questions in that I thought might be helpful. I'm asked this question a lot, but this question was, what are some examples of how you keep learning? Okay, so some of you know I'm approaching 60, let's just say. I'm in the upper 50s, approaching 60, but I'm still committed to learn, and I have a plan to do that. I don't have just a random way of doing that, but I have, again, I wouldn't say it's locked down that I know every book that I'm going to read this year, but I know I'm going to read a lot of books this year, okay? Some of that may come by recommendations, but typically I read between 25 and 30 books a year. Now, some of that maybe when I'm working out, I'm listening to a book, or I'm in my car, but some I'll have on my desk, I'll have in my quiet time spot. So I'm reading, I'm studying. That's one of the things I do. I used to push that number to 50, but because of the age of more articles that you can have and podcasts, I've changed my mix a little bit. So somewhere between 25 and 30 books a year, in that range, a couple books a month. If you'll read 2 books a month, you will put yourself at an elite level when it comes to learning. Now again, you got to make sure you're reading the right kind of stuff. Now my wife may not like me saying this, but books that only entertain you, those are more kid books. All right, I know that's being negative, But books that help you to grow, that you can now help others, those are really for the adults, for us to continue to learn and grow. And I'm not saying you shouldn't read things for entertainment. I watch a lot of television, and mostly for entertainment. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm not talking about in your list of books that you read, books that are more entertaining value. Have some of those, but read a couple books a month that's really helping you to grow as a leader, to help you lead yourself well. And then somewhere between 75 and 100 podcasts a year. I've got about 4 different folks that I listen to podcasts on a regular basis. Some of them put out something every week. Some of them put something out every month. And so I've got 3 or 4 that I usually listen to on an ongoing basis. And then I read quite a few blogs and articles, at least 2 a week, all right? At least, so over 100 a year. And then I typically will buy a coaching program every year. And I've spent as much as $3,000 for one, and I've spent as less as $25, depending on what I'm able to focus in on. But a coaching program, and I'll do that once or twice a year, and it may take several weeks to go through that. But that's part of the things that I do to learn. And here's something else that helps me in my learning. When I'm studying, when I'm reading books, when I'm learning from a coach or a coaching program, I'm always thinking through the filter or mindset, how will this help others? You see, I want to empower others. I want to encourage. It goes back to my purpose, encouraging, empowering others to live, lead, and finish well. It's not about me. How can I encourage and empower other people? So that's my focus there, okay? So when I'm teaching, I'm always thinking through that lens, or when I'm studying, I'm thinking through the lens of how will this help others? And then I would suggest that you get a mentor, okay? And I've had multiple mentors through the years, some by distance, some that I met with on a regular basis. But I think that's helpful for all of us to have a mentor. And then think about having a mastermind group or a round table. When I first started my consulting business, going on 11 years now, I started a round table of like-minded people working in the same space, and we would meet once a month. And it was invaluable to me when I started my consulting firm. It was so helpful to me. So I'm looking at doing something like that now, about me having a couple round tables that I meet with leaders that I can pour into in that mastermind round table. If you're interested in being a part of one of those, maybe you'll let me know that, and that may tip the scales for me to make that decision by January to start a couple round tables, okay? It'd be an investment of your time and some money to do that, but if you'd be interested in doing that, I'd probably look at doing one in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it might even go back and do one in Louisiana. So I'm just kind of studying and looking at that as a possibility, as another way, in a deeper level, to pour in maybe 8, 10, 12 people on a monthly basis. So those are some things that I do to keep learning, okay? And there may be some new things that come out that can help me there also. And then another question I got is, what do you mean by servant leadership? So I mentioned a little bit about that. So I want you to think about this. The greatest example of a servant leader was Jesus. You know, now listen, you may not be a Christian, and that's okay. This is not just geared to give you biblical principles, but Jesus was the greatest example of a servant. You know, what did he do? He came to save that which was lost, but he also washed the feet of his disciples. The leader became the servant. He humbled himself and he washed the disciples' feet. You know, I've had someone wash my feet before as a way to humble themselves. Now listen, that's not practical today, but the picture is about find ways to serve the people that work for you or work under you or even your family. Washing their feet may be inappropriate, but by doing something else, maybe a similar type thing. How can you serve the people that you work with? And then think in terms of back to this, what do I mean by servant leadership? Think in terms of span of care versus span of control. We usually hear span of control. Here's the people that I control. Think more of the people that are under your leadership. This is my span of care. These are the people that have been entrusted to me that I should care for. And then here's another one that people that have worked for me over the years would say this: I always know that Scotty has my back. And listen, that may be on my headstone someday. Scotty had my back. But you know what? They know I'll talk to them just straightforward. I'm not going to stab them in the back. I tell people I'll just stab you right between the eyes. but I do that because I care about them in that regard. It's out for their good. Now that sounds extreme and that may be a bad example, but here's the thing, people that work under you, they want to know you have their back. Don't stab them in the back. Don't let other people triangulate and go around the person and you allow that to happen. They want to know, if you want to serve your people, have their back. All right, so here's the thing I want to ask you to do. If this is something that's helped you, I would like to hear which one of these points that I talked about tonight helped you the most or spoke to you. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Which one of these things really spoke to you when it relates to how do you lead yourself well? And then I would encourage you to post that. And then here's something, if you want to encourage me and you want to lead well, you can do this with doing one thing. Please consider sharing this. That would be a great blessing to me. It would encourage me that this is helping you, but it's also a way that you can encourage other people, and it's a way that you can lead well. This has helped you. Hey, how can I help some other people? Okay? Now listen, I'm going to be leading well. I want you to lead well. Again, this is the number one leadership principle, is just lead well. And you do that until we get together next week. So take care.